What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've talked about all these different leaks that have hit Nintendo when a Switch game is coming out and it just shows up online, gets dumped, and then distributed. Now, though, Nintendo has to think about other avenues where there can be leaks, especially with all the other stuff they're doing outside of games. We'll go over the latest one that's happened and how weird it was here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Microsoft now moving on from what was apparently a 10-year plan for this big game that they have. Now, though, moving on into next year for the next release in the Halo franchise. And we'll also be talking about Steam, which apparently is being viewed as a monopoly, at least based on a recent survey, and go figure, a lot of the respondents were, well, C-suite executives. All that and more, guys. If you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with good news for Mass Effect fans, because with everything that's going on with EA and BioWare, naturally there's concern around the next Mass Effect game that we don't really know much about at all. Well, N7 Day did happen. That was, go figure, November 7th. And with that, we did at least get some update for this game. We can see this. This is over on BioWare's blog on their website, saying, like you, we've heard the rumors lately. You've made it clear you care deeply about what's next. So let's start by setting the record straight. The next Mass Effect game is in development, and EA and BioWare remain committed to telling more stories in this universe. So good news for Mass Effect fans out there who are a bit concerned around everything that was going on at EA behind the scenes with them working to go private, but also just BioWare in general hasn't exactly been on a great run recently, especially when it comes to the business side and the return on investment. So Mass Effect seems like it's rolling along, at least behind the scenes. It's just going to be a while, and it wouldn't shock me if maybe they're already thinking about PlayStation 6 or cross-generation. Yeah, it's going to be that long. Also, we do know that Sonic Racing Crossworlds is going to have its Switch 2 edition released on December 4th, but with that, we do have some of the technical details. This we can see over on Nintendo Life. We have the dock mode with 4-player split screen, handheld mode, and then handheld mode with 4-player split screen. The good news here is with single and 2-player split screen in docked mode, it is 60 FPS at 1440p. Docked mode with 4-player split screen will cut that in half to 30 FPS, same resolution though. And then in handheld mode, you will have 1080p 60 FPS with single or 2-player split screen. And then with 4-player, they'll cut that frame rate in half to 30 FPS. Just when you have that many people, I guess, on one screen, it just ends up being a bit more taxing, and they decide, let's cut the frame rate rather than resolution. Since you only have so much of the screen real estate to work with for any one person, probably shouldn't cut down on the resolution. Also appears that you'll need 16 gigabytes of storage on your system or a micro express SD card. Of course, if you already have Sonic Racing Crossworlds on the Switch 1, there is an upgrade path there as well. So I think these resolution numbers, along with the frame rate, is good news. Typically when we see these ports, it's like, okay, are they going to get 30 or 60 FPS? Are they going to go down to 30 to try to maintain the resolution? That seems pretty solid here overall. I think even with upscaling, it should look pretty good, whether it's in docked mode or in handheld mode. Oh, and it looks like Silent Hill 2, we've been seeing pop up quite a bit, and it moving over to Xbox now. We're just waiting for the official announcement. Now we just seem to have the release date even, and this is coming way of the Microsoft Store. They've leaked stuff in the past, but you can probably look at this and almost confirm it. This we can see, though. This is over on True Achievements, saying Silent Hill 2 is coming to Xbox on November 21st. So I guess it's getting announced this week then? Really any day now, and then we can look towards the 21st, just ahead of Thanksgiving, and then of course the holiday season following up in December. So if you've been waiting for Silent Hill 2 to head to the Xbox, you should be seeing that pop up any day now in the news. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo seeing another leak, this time though, rather than with the games, it's with their movies, and with that Super Mario Galaxy movie that we're expecting a trailer now anytime. And part of that is because we hear that it's going to be attached to a movie that's upcoming here pretty soon in theaters, and you figure if they're going to put it there in theaters, they would release it just worldwide on social media, on TV, everything, to get sort of the hype cycle going into 2026 for what is going to be a massive release for Nintendo on the big screen. Well, with that, they of course have collaborations with other companies and different forms of media or food and Well, in this case, it seems like some of the stuff has leaked out, specifically renderings for the characters, and this we can see over on My Nintendo News, saying renders from the highly anticipated Super Mario Galaxy movie has leaked thanks to Pillsbury and their ready-to-bake cookies. Didn't see that one coming, I will admit. Now, on the front of the box, and this gets a little tricky because I've seen this play out before, where Nintendo, Sony, whoever, they'll strike down videos and stuff if you put some like these renderings just outright in the video. So I'll blur them for now, but you know, in the sources, there's a link to My Nintendo News. You can see the images for yourself if you want while we're going through it here. But on the front, you see Mario and Yoshi and the renderings then that would play into the Mario Galaxy movie. And it looks like the cookies they have as Yoshi's eggs. So that's kind of clever, I guess. And then on the back, they do have the rendering of Mario riding Yoshi, as we see in something like Mario Galaxy 2, even on the front, kind of reenacting that. And it looks like you can kind of trace the shortest path there for Mario and Yoshi. Still though, this playing into the Mario Galaxy movie, it is something that's interesting for Nintendo to have to contend with, because going forward, I mean, they're going all in just about on the big screen. Remember, on page 34 for their investors briefing, they did show the Legend of Zelda movie alongside of the Galaxy movie, and then 2 other slots, and then they said even beyond that, they're going to have more movies. So we're expecting one of those to be the Donkey Kong movie, because apparently that report got out there early, and this is the thing Nintendo's gonna have to realize. While the gaming scene is very, very secretive, the movie side, not as much. I mean, a lot of stuff will get announced way in advance, or you'll have agents for different actors or actresses kind of slip information out there, and then it gets published online in different reports. And a lot of that, yeah, you might be hyping up that actor, actress, whoever, just continue to raise their profile up, maybe for a big role that they're getting. But that's what Nintendo is going to have to realize going wading into the pool of big screen releases like this in the movies. Yeah, you're going to see things like these collaborations get out online early, or just information leak out. But this is an interesting thing for Nintendo because it's been very successful already with the first Mario movie. Kind of an unknown a bit, okay, because the last Mario movie was, we remember that way back in the day. So now we know, coming off of their latest Mario movie, the success at the box office, more than $1 billion. Yeah, Mario Galaxy movie is going to do very, very well too. And then going into Zelda, that's the one I'm really curious about. And well, if we get some kind of images leak out around maybe the different sets that are happening, or renderings and stuff like this, that could even break the internet on its own before Nintendo is able to make any formal announcements or show any of that media themselves. So interesting stuff there. I guess we're going to see this trailer for the Mario Galaxy movie really showcasing it here anytime now. Seriously, it could be this week, the next week. It seems like we are poised to have that big reveal heading into 2026 when it releases in April. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and Halo, but this time Halo Infinite. We know Halo Campaign Evolved is coming out next year, and that was a whole media cycle there on its own. But because of that, we're looking around for the multiplayer game that would follow along with it, or I guess even released afterwards, because next year is the 25th anniversary for the Xbox brand and for Halo. So we have the campaign coming, but what about the multiplayer side? Seems like there is something that's cooking right now at Halo Studios, maybe to come out next year alongside of Campaign Evolved, but because of that, you figure they have to shift their attention away from Halo Infinite, and in fact, that is what's happening. This we can see over on the Halo Waypoint website, where they say, with multiple Halo titles in development, we'll need our whole team's combined focus to deliver new experiences with the same passion and care that our community has given us. While we remain committed to supporting Halo Infinite on the road ahead, Operation Infinite is the last major content update currently planned. And this cuts short their apparent 10-year plan by, year 4, they didn't make it halfway, So you look at that and go, geez, that Halo Infinite certainly did not work out the way that Microsoft wanted it to. That's no secret at this point. Look at how many of the people have turned over there and aren't at Halo Studios, which was 343 before that. Even down to where we heard about it being a 10-year plan from Chris Lee, who's a former studio head at 343. This was in 2020, an IGN interview, where he said, Halo Infinite is the start of our platform for the future. We want Infinite to grow over time versus going to those numbered titles and having all that segmentation that we had before. It's really about creating Halo Infinite as the start of the next 10 years for Halo, and then building that as we go with our fans and community. So Halo Infinite was kind of seen as a platform, quote unquote, not necessarily an individual title like we've had numbered releases in the past. And I'm sure in theory that was a great idea, but the execution was just bad. I mean, it came out as a work in progress day zero. I mean, the game didn't even come out. Like when they were planning for it to, it had to get pushed back. And then when it did come out, it didn't even have Team Slayer. Like, what is that? How do you release Halo and there's no Team Slayer game mode? It was so weird. They had to push off things like campaign split screen. That was not a thing. And then the campaign co-op was pushed back further as well, to where you make that poor first impression and people move on. And we see what happened with 343. They completely transformed, leadership changed, and that really was what caused the 10-year plan to completely fall through and became a 4.5-year plan, I guess. Just about that. So now they're moving on, of course, Halo Studios. They do have multiple projects in the works for Halo. So Halo will continue on, but this does mark basically the end of Halo Infinite, coming in closer to the typical 3, even 4-year cycle we see with these Halo releases. So yeah, they may as well have just made it a numbered release, just like they always have. Next up, let's talk about Steam and why it was being called a monopoly in many different headlines over the weekend. This we can see is posted. This is from gamesindustry.biz, saying more than half of the developers feel they rely too heavily on Steam to distribute their games, with 72% believing the platform has a monopoly on the PC games market. That's according to a new white paper from PC distribution platform Rocky, titled "The State of PC Game Distribution." The independent study conducted by Atomic Research surveyed 306 industry executives across the UK and USA between May 18th, May 22nd, 2025. 75% of the respondents, get this, were senior managers of C-suite level, CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, with 77% of studios with more than 50 employees. The study found that for the majority of studios, Steam accounts for over 75% of revenue. So you have that many people at the top, these executives, who are just looking at Steam as a monopoly for the market. And people hear monopoly and immediately go, oh, wow, that's really bad. And that's the kind of the connotation that comes with it, the view of it. Monopoly, bad. Here's the thing, though. I wouldn't even look at Steam as a monopoly. I see it as really the market leader overall. But with them in place, they're not really stifling competition. Steam just kind of exists. And because it's such a good platform, people tend to go to it by default. I mean, really think about it. People list the Epic Game Store, they'll list GOG. Think about that from Microsoft's viewpoint. They have their Windows store, Windows Gaming Store, and it just comes loaded with the most popular operating system out there, being Windows. Like 90% of computers use it. But people decide, rather than using the default store that comes with the OS that has a bunch of games on it, they go out of their way and install Steam and use that instead. That has to really annoy Microsoft. I mean, Satya Nadella mentioned Steam when he was doing his rounds of interviews. He brought Steam up a couple of times. And I was like, yeah, he notices, and it's probably not a fun thing for him to have to admit that's the more exciting Windows storefront, even because of the Windows compatibility and all the games that people play on Windows, than the Windows default store that's already there on the OS. Still, though, when you look at Steam, I mean, you have competitors, they're just nowhere near the level of it. So we mentioned Epic Game Store. It's been out for 4 years now. GOG's been around, but it seems like they've been making waves more and more recently. Then itch.io is more for independent games or independent developers and stuff. Like really like smaller developers want to get their name out there. And then otherwise the EAs and the Ubisoft, their launches are mostly viewed for their, like, just specifically their games, not like a general purpose store. Same thing with like battle.net and stuff like that. So Steam controlling a large chunk, you could say, hey, that's the monopoly, and maybe just trying to put it out there in the universe to see if anyone, like, I don't know, regulators pay attention to that. The only thing there is if you're a C-suite executive, you're probably not thrilled with Steam because they also take 30% from sales, whereas like the Windows Store, Epic Game Store, they take less. It's like 12%, I believe. And even with Epic Game Store, they don't touch the first million. I think if you use Unreal Engine, it's even more favorable to the publishers, whereas Steam's just like, it's 30%. And they also don't give as much control around, the microtransactions and all the other things that I'm sure the C-suite executives would like to do. So I do think there's a bit of annoyance there from some of these top-level executives who are talking about Steam as a monopoly. And to me, it's just, Valve's just there with a good platform. and it works in their favor. Now, the one thing I will point out that's a little annoying is when people say, oh, they haven't really done a lot and they just have the most popular platform. They've been working on Steam for 2 decades. It's been a long time. And people hated Steam when it first showed up. I know because I was there, hating along with them. And the thing is, it was mostly because Half-Life 2, big release, get the nice box set and everything. You pop it in your PC, the DVD or CD drive even back then, and you had to install Steam to activate it. That was the first time I remember looking at that and going, what is this? And what I was seeing at the time was DRM, and Steam is kind of interlaced, completely interwoven with DRM. It's kind of crazy, actually. GOG, to me, is the platform that if I could pick one to really rival Steam, that's the one. DRM free, them going back and getting a lot of the classics and making them more compatible with current hardware and resolutions and setups. It's really cool with their preservation program. I think that works to really set them apart from the rest of the market. But for now, yeah, Steam is the go-to, and because of that, yeah, they have a position that looks a lot like a monopoly, but they're really not doing things that would be viewed as anti-competitive or anything like that would then make them a monopoly. That would be a problem. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the PlayStation Portal, as we have some new statistics around it, but the big one here is that Sony seems pretty happy with the sales for it at this time. We can see this though. This is over on Tech Radar saying, speaking with Tech Radar Gaming almost 2 years after the handheld's launch, Takuro Fushimi, Senior Manager Product Management, said that the PlayStation Portal has exceeded Sony's expectations in terms of engagement and is now used more for remote play than even the PlayStation 5 is for the same feature. They go on to mention that Sony being as happy as they are, I mean, what do you think is going to happen from there? We're expecting a dedicated handheld, and that's kind of what's been rumored and discussed, even around some of the leaked specs and details. Seems like they're poised to have a handheld and then a home console solution going in the next generation. I think it is interesting, the PlayStation Portal, we've heard at like Circana, US sales, 5% of PlayStation 5 owners in the US also have a PlayStation Portal. So there is some demand for the idea of remote play from a device that is dedicated to it, not just, oh, I'll use my phone or my PC as they're mentioning here. No, they're just going to use that PlayStation Portal that probably, for the most part, stays around the house. I don't really travel much with the PlayStation Portal. Really, it does. It stays on it's like the coffee table handheld kind of. It just hangs out pretty close actually to the PS5, which is one reason I would have liked to have seen maybe some kind of direct wireless connection similar to the Wii U, where it would go from the PlayStation Portal to the PS5. Maybe that's something that Sony works on for next generation, because what's interesting about this, the price point of the PlayStation Portal and its functionality as something that's still reliant, say, on a PS5. I know we just had the streaming stuff that came out with that update, but for the most part, the best experience is going to be from remote playing through your own network on your own PS5. But for the next generation, at a $200-ish price point, even $250 if they want to add on some more technology to it and enhance some of the features, I think you could still sell it alongside of a PlayStation 6 and a dedicated handheld. That'll probably be starting at twice as much in terms of the price, but a direct wireless connection for the PS6 with a new portal that would give just a better overall experience, I think would take the whole thing to the next level, and maybe that's something they're planning out. But for now, the PlayStation Portal seems like Sony is happy with it, and it does also appear that it's kind of reawoken Sony's interest maybe in that handheld market, and that's something I can really get behind. Just having more competition in a handheld market with, yes, these handheld PCs, but obviously up against the Nintendo with their Switch 2 right now, because the PSP, that did very, very well. Still over 80 million console or handheld sold, but the Vita, that struggled pretty heavily. So maybe they can make a return to the handheld scene and at least try to put some pressure on Nintendo with the Switch 2, because, well, the Switch 2 already outsold the entirety of the PC gaming handheld market, so that's not really doing it for them. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, where are you buying the majority of PC games right now? 88% just outright say Steam, so you guys aren't helping with the monopoly stuff here. 6% though for GOG. I would like to see, as I mentioned, GOG continue to climb up the charts here, and maybe we'll run this poll again in a few months, or maybe next year we'll do it just to see. But I would like to see GOG get up over 10%, 5% just a different store front, not listed. Wow, only 2% on Epic Game Store. That's the thing that's crazy to me. Epic Game Store, 4 years or so it's been around, all right? They did try to employ what you would look at as like monopolistic tactics of, yeah, we're gonna go ahead and lock down timed exclusivity for new releases. We're gonna give away games. We're gonna do all this stuff to try to entice consumers over, and it still didn't work. I guess you could say, hey, Steam is just so entrenched because it has been around for so long and people have built up these libraries. I mean, it's gone through multiple generations now with Steam. Maybe that's enough. The digital library, where your friends are, where your stats are for like your entire gamer profile. I mean, it could be 10 plus years old and you're just comfortable where you are. So it would take a lot to pull people away. Maybe DRM free is the move, as we're seeing with GOG, because whatever Epic Game Store is doing just never seems to make people happy online. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Stug, who says, as a kid, I got stuck in the water temple in Ocarina, so my mom printed me a Zelda game FAQs walkthrough at work, and I got through it. Decades later, I still have that crumpled up paper and I still refer to it when replaying Ocarina. What a great resource. Yeah, you know you're in it when you got to start printing stuff out for a game. But I mean, back then, you probably had one computer in your house and maybe you got an hour on it at in a day or something. So you printed it out to use later in the living room with the TV, and you had the piece of paper. We didn't have a laptop or a phone or something that we could have with us the whole time. That was it. You paper, pen, maybe to write down the codes when like I'm playing Mega Man X or something and they flash up the numbers for the password. And I'm just like, oh, I got to write this whole thing down again. I had papers of codes, the square, right? The 4x4 or 5x5, whatever, the cube of numbers, I had them all over the place trying to remember what each one was and which boss was beaten. And that's how it was. Pen and paper, or if you're really fortunate, the printer. That and having to print out directions for MapQuest, it's just, the new generation's just never going to know any of that. It's all right there on our phone now. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear a bit about Nintendo with their discussion with investors around their plans going forward, especially around game development and the price of the Switch 2 that a lot of people figure is going to go up. Well, they did respond to all of that, and I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.